Okay, I'm going to get to the economy very, very shortly, and of course I will get to sport as well, but there's another sector that I want to discuss here tonight, and I'm interested in both of your thoughts on this. Let's go to the Australian, and let's talk about schools. Let's talk about private schools, public schools, and universities, because there's a big debate, and I mean a big debate going on right now among parents around Australia as to whether or not they should keep their kids at home, whether they in fact should self-isolate their own children. There's also a very strong push for the Prime Minister to intervene and basically close schools down, as we've seen in many, many, many countries throughout this crisis. And if we go to the front of the odds, parents push schools to closures. Independent schools are buckling to pressure from anxious parents and shutting down campuses in a bid to protect students from the coronavirus, pitting the sector against federal and state health officials who have advised against preemptive closures. About a dozen non-government schools across Victoria announced on Monday they would scrap face-to-face classes, with some students to be sent home for as long as a month to continue their education online. Scott Emerson, is there an inevitability about the fact that if this particular virus escalates, as we're seeing some of the figures, they're talking about, 150,000 deaths and many, many, many more Australians being affected. Is there an inevitability about some schools, well, all schools, having to be closed?
No, I think at the moment the only reason we're not seeing the advice coming back about closing schools is the flow-on effect. Children coming home, parents being forced to stay at home to look after their children, and therefore, particularly in terms of the health sector, potentially health workers being drawn out of the system to look after their children. I think that is the only reason why schools aren't being closed at the moment. As this progresses, I think you'll see more and more pressure from parents to say, let's pull our kids out. But for some other parents, they say, look, I can't afford it, I can't deal with it, I need to be at work or need to be doing that, I can't look after my kids, someone has to look after my kids. But I think this is an evolving thing, and how quickly we have seen it move. You know, we weren't seeing sporting events being cancelled a week ago. Suddenly we saw the Grand Prix. Then we're seeing now, when we'll talk about other sporting events being put on hold or being curtailed, you're seeing other events, the 500 gathering being put in place, restrictions now on people coming to Australia and self-isolating for 2 weeks. All these things are evolving, but you have to see where the momentum is going. Clearly the pressure is building for them to say, the obvious one being is extending the Easter school holidays for a longer period of time. That seems to be the easy out at the moment. The school holidays start in a couple of weeks' time, bring it forward, extend it out the other end. That would seem to be the obvious way to do it.
Caleb, do you support Scott's recommendation in that area?
Look, it seems sensible. At some point, the kids will have to be sent home, if for no other reason then and I'm no immunologist, but there is evidence at this point in time to show that children can contract coronavirus and carry it without showing any symptoms whatsoever, particularly young children.
That's correct, mate.
So if we're talking about primary schools, it is an extremely dangerous situation, because these kids may have absolutely no effect on them, but if they're spending time around their grandparents, if they're spending time around teachers who might be in the 60 to 70 plus age bracket, that is a serious danger. And if anything, kids are the people in that case that should be avoiding the virus under all circumstances, because they are the most dangerous carriers of it. And look, it has knock-on effects. I'm on the board of a sporting organisation. We run bike races across South Australia and WA, and it's predominantly made up of schools. And we have races that have upwards of 200 teams, and we now have education departments across the country saying that, extracurricular activities, sports outside of school grounds are banned. So that'll be our series kaput, and it'll be the end of a lot of school sports. So the effects go on and on and on. But I think you've got to take the advice of immunologists who've proven that this is dangerous, because kids contract it and don't show symptoms. I don't know why you wouldn't be taking them out of school.